when the pandemic first started, March of 2020. That was in like the middle of the year. And then we didn't have school at all for the rest of the year. And then we're just supposed to return the next school year as though everything was normal. So when you have a gap, but you don't like go and make up for it, then you just continue onwards with this entire gap in your knowledge. I know people who, for me, when the pandemic started, I was a sophomore in high school. So who literally never passed geometry, but when we got to junior year, it was time to do algebra 2 or pre-calc, and like they just don't know geometry. Like they don't know geometry math because we never went back to it. We never covered it again. It was just like pushing forward as far as we could, ignoring like all the things that needed to be accounted for, basically.
I think something that schools should prioritize is students' mental health. So like it's because it's been numerous kids like me who have lost somebody during the pandemic. Maybe they've been sick or they know somebody who's been sick and they've is still affecting them. And I just think schools should focus on that. They should also focus on maybe meeting students where they are in learning. So whatever their whatever their level of learning is right now, schools should focus on meeting students at that point.
I've heard a lot of conversations, especially in school, both middle and high school, of adults, saying, "What do you have to be stressed for? You're a kid," And I think one of the biggest walls we have to break down is understanding what mental health and self care looks like in a school setting and outside school setting. I think that we often tell ourselves, and even adults, we often tell ourselves, what stays at home, you have to keep that at home. And when you come to work and when you come to school, you have to put it to the side. But the reality is you can't. That's the reality. When if you have a messed up morning or you have a bad morning or something, ticks you off, you can't just turn on a switch in your head and walk into the school building or walk into work and say it's all gone, right? And so I think that one of the biggest things that we should do, not only as engaging school leaders and administrators and teachers, but also students, is understanding and breaking down that barrier and redefining what it means to address and assess mental health, right? So where we can also effectively catch it right before it gets worse or before it leads to inevitable things, but also making sure that we nurture whatever either student or teacher or school administrator or employee situation that has to be going on. So I think that's definitely a conversation that needs to be had, and I think that's definitely a policy that should be put in place.
Since I'm an upcoming senior, there's a lot of things with college application stuff, and I don't really have one at home to walk me through that. So I feel like if there was like a teacher or like a school time where someone would walk us through that process, it would take away a lot of our stress, and it would be great to rely on something like that.
It took me my first day of class to realize that a lot of the instruction that I had in high school is so irrelevant to real world and realistic issues that we face today. I could never understand why, we would know everything about chemistry, we would know everything about physics, but we don't know anything about filing taxes. We know nothing about money management. We know nothing about savings and investments and CODs and Roth IRAs, things that, will benefit us in the long run. We know nothing about. And so it's the harsh reality, especially for communities of color, we have to realize at a later point in life, and to the point where we've already done so much irreparable damage that we don't have the access to resources or the access to that financial stability to be able to do what we want. So I think that's definitely a conversation that should be had, and that's definitely a conversation that everyone should engage with their curriculum at their respective school districts, is how can we make sure that we actually prepare students for the future, and what does the future look like in the modern 21st century? What does that future look like?
I think something that makes the a teacher that everybody enjoys and that is very effective is they listen to students. They don't just drone on and on and on with a lesson, but maybe they ask students for their feedback about the lesson, or maybe somebody that uses unconventional techniques for teaching, not just a traditional lesson plan, something like that. Yeah, that's something I think it makes a very effective teacher.
I think a good teacher or a great teacher is a teacher with a good support network. I've been saying a lot about engagement and activity. The truth is, if I was in a teacher's shoe, it would be really hard to like care and give it your all and your most peppy face and attitude when you're doing your job, when it's like kind of dead end, you have to pay for materials yourself, you have no support, your job follows you home, you're doing a lot of things outside of your actual workplace. I really do understand what it is that makes a lot of teachers kind of boring or even unlikable, to be honest. Is like a lack of support, a lack of really giving them the resources that they need to actually do what they have to do. And so a lot of our classes are spent with the bare minimum. You read the textbook, you turn in the homework, you leave. I think teachers themselves would actually like to have a class that's more engaging, more fun and enjoyable for everyone. It's just that a lot of them don't really have the resources that they need to take it to that next level. So they just have to give us like whatever is like left over, really.
The two most important people that know what's best in the classroom is the teacher and the student. That's it. And so I think that, when we engage with students, I think that's the biggest thing. Don't shoot them down, hear them out and understand and listen to them. Because at the end of the day, again, what you do affects us.